Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Yankees win the four-game set against the Chicago White Sox, taking 3 of 4, but they do lose the last game of the series, snapping a 7-game win streak and actually a 9-game road winning streak as well. So it's actually kind of the opposite of last week, where the Yankees were able to salvage that last game against Boston. And then that was actually the start of the winning streak. And I had said going in that 3 out of 4, that's what it needed to be. But you get greedy. You do. And when you win the first 3 games of the series, and it was a tough loss. I mean, the last game it was. So it's one of those things I talk about when recording these episodes. And a lot of the times it's the opposite this year, where I'll be talking where they recently won the game but lost the series. Here it's the opposite, where the tone should be positive, but let one slip away today. It wasn't like a poorly played game, just um, offense wasn't able to do enough, and a couple of big home runs allowed. Tim Hill in the 8th inning, White Sox take a 3-2 lead and they win. And like I say, it's tough. Any team in the league, like to go on the road and win all 4 games, that's a very tall task. It's not easy winning all 4 games at home. You do that on the road, even tougher. So, look, the Yankees, they were able to find a way to win that game against Boston last week. Here, the White Sox do that. So, overall, though, the Yankees made up a lot of ground. It was just today was tough because Toronto wins, Boston wins. So, the Yankees had drawn, to down 2 games of the division, which is as close as they had been in over a month. I think July 22nd might have been the exact date. But all that said, as we go into September, as we go in with the Yankees at 76 and 61, and what is it, 25 games left on the year? I think that's the number. I think 25. That sounds right. Um, it's anyone's guess where things go. And it's a very, very, very pivotal 2-week stretch here. At Houston for 3, home against Toronto for 3, home against Detroit for 3, and then at Boston, all 3-game series. So 12 games. Yankees are 7-19 against these 4 teams combined this season. And these are the teams that you are going to have to go up against if you are to get through the American League. That's what it is, right? These are, I would say, now you want to throw Seattle in there, that's fine, but the Yankees have had success against Seattle. But I would say that taking the Yankees out of it, these are the 4 best teams in the American League. In no order. Toronto, Boston, Detroit, and Houston. Right? It's not important. The order isn't important. But this is going to tell a lot as far as where the Yankees are going to end up, as far as the standings and the bracket within the American League, and just as well how they look and how you feel about this team. Because after that, you have 4 series against weaker competition. 3 with the Twins, 7 games with the Orioles, and then another 3 against Chicago, the White Sox. So you can put yourself in a pretty good position if the Yankees can find a way to go 7-5 or 8-4. That really sets them up well. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I still believe that the struggles that they've had against good teams continues to an extent. And it's tough to map it out. We got to take it series by series, but I think look, this is not a bold guess. I think somewhere in that 6-6 range, but I would, if I had to go one place or the other, I'm going more 5-7. I'm not saying that what they've done lately is totally fool's gold, but I still have not seen it this year against the better competition in the American League. But I'm excited. But all that said, I'm excited for this stretch. I think any Yankee fan would be. And it's just nice that, like, in theory, the Yankees could still finish in first in the American League. Like, right now, the Tigers occupy that spot, and the Yankees are 3 back on the loss side of the Tigers, and they play them. So, like, crazier things have happened for sure. Um, but it all starts in Houston. But before we go there, before we preview that series, we got to talk about what happened in Chicago. And first off, as we normally do, just want to talk about the roster. Rosters will expand, right? So if that Houston game, um, that will begin the Yankees September schedule, which expands the roster by one for hitters and by one for pitchers. So it would appear as if Ryan Yarbrough will be activated for the IL and take that spot for the pitcher. And then for the hitters, it actually seems like Austin Slater. Now, that one's not 100% confirmed, but I think that's likely. If it's not, maybe you see JC Escara for a game or two. But that's the plan for Austin Slater, which is nice against lefties to at least see what you have there, right? He didn't look great in the few games before he got hurt, but I thought the recovery went actually a little bit quicker. I kind of thought he was more going to be back maybe mid-September. So glad to see that he's all right. Um, that all said, I especially with the pitching, I still think that you're going to see some arms moving in and out. Like Paul Blackburn's on the roster right now. Do I expect him to last the season? Probably not. And I feel as if, there are some decent arms in AAA that you might see. And injuries are such a frequent thing when it comes to pitchers anyway. So, but that's the situation there. But the Yankees, this series starts out really well. The first two games, the Yankees really got after it and won in pretty convincing fashion. It's games 3 and 4 that were very close. And the Yankees were in some ways fortunate, in a lot of ways fortunate to win game 3. So you can't be totally upset and say, well, the Yankees 3 wins were blowouts. No, the third game was the Yankees were inches away from losing that third one. So game 1 was a matchup between Will Warren and Davis Martin for the Chicago White Sox. And Martin struggled. He ends up getting the no decision. He goes 3 2/3, 4 hits, 4 runs, 3 of those earned, 3 walks, and 5 strikeouts. Will Warren, now the earned run average ends up looking good, but he hasn't been great lately. He gets the win to go to 8-6, 5 innings, 5 hits, 4 runs. Again, none earned, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts for Will Warren. And um, I feel like for him, you look at the playoff rotation right now, and the top 3 are Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, and Cam Schlittler. That's just what it is. And that can change. But I think if the playoffs started right now, I think that's the 3. Um, and again though, it's just way too soon to say. But the point is that in a very competitive look, the rotation has really been pretty good lately. In all honesty, like it's had its struggles, but there's been a pretty good run the last few weeks. And Will Warren, who at times was looking really good, I just feel like the last 3 or so starts have not been up to par for him. But that all said, hey, no one runs in 5 innings. You'll take that. He gets the win. Um, and as far as the lineup was concerned, Aaron Judge still remains at DH. Will be interesting to see when he comes back to the outfield. I think that will happen, right? I definitely believe that he'll be back in right, but for now, Stan has been out there for the most part. He played 3 of the 4 games in right. Um, we would see no Austin Wells, and it's been a bit of a mix against righties between Wells and Goldschmidt. And to be honest with you, against righties, if that's the choice, right? If it's between those two things, right? And Ben Rice can be in there, my leaning is for Austin Wells to be in there. And it's not because I'm the biggest Austin Wells fan of what he's done this season, but it's more you get a little bit more sound catching. And I think that that's more important than the drop off from Goldschmidt to Rice at first. I'd rather get Wells' defense behind the plate. Not that it's amazing, but it's pretty good. And I just feel like Goldschmidt as a weapon off the bench against lefties is pretty valuable. So I still remain in that camp. And, remains to be seen, like, come playoff time, what they'll choose in that situation. But other than that, your pretty standard lineup for the Yankees, as again, Austin Wells would sit game 1. And then, yeah, everything else, look, Jason Dominguez does not have much of a role right now. I believe Jason Dominguez started just one game in this series, which kind of checks out. I think that's what it was. So look, like that's just unfortunately what's going on for him. It's a bit of a logjam in the outfield. I've said that there's a way to get him in that lineup, and that way is to move Bellinger to first and get Dominguez over there and left. You could do that, but it doesn't seem as if that's really in the cards right now. Speaking of Cody Bellinger, he gets the Yankees on the board early. First inning of game one, Cody Bellinger, 2-run homer. His 26th home run of the season makes it nothing. The amount of Yankee home runs is insane. Throughout the lineup, you got guys in that mid 20s range or just shy of 20. It's crazy up and down the lineup. The amount of home runs they hit, it's truly insane. And Cody Bellinger makes it 2-0. Then in the top of the second, Jazz Chisholm Jr. Speaking of players in mid 20s home runs wise, Jazz ties up Cody Bellinger with 26 homers. And for Jazz, it's even more impressive because he missed a bunch of time due to injury. So that makes it 3-0 Yanks. They would add on another run with a Ben Rice RBI single to get 4-0. However, the bottom of the second is the one bad Yankee inning in game one. And it would be Anthony Volpe with an error. And Volpe's defense has been good lately, but a bad error here that eventually leads to all those unearned runs coming in. And it looked as if Will Warren was going to escape out of it. However, Miguel Vargas, who sustained a really a very unfortunate injury later in this game, which I believe we'll talk about, he hits a grand slam, his 14th homer of the year, and it's tied up at 4. So that was a bit of a tough blow at the time. And that Volpe defense ends up costing them here. But again, Will Warren deserves blame as well. And we're all tied at 4. So let's now go to the 5th, where the Yankees retake the lead. And this is that unfortunate play. After a Ben Rice single, Aaron Judge reaches on an infield single. Now, they could have ruled this an error on that. It ends up being a throwing error on the third baseman, Curtis Mead. And on the play, it's a close play at first, and Judge, his leg goes into Miguel Vargas's wrist. It was similar to what we saw between Giancarlo Stanton and Jonathan Aranda when the Yankees played the Rays at Yankee Stadium. And unfortunately, Vargas gets hurt there, and actually Rice scores all the way from first because it's one of those plays where he was down and just the way the defense was aligned. So Yankees take a 5-4 lead, and then they would add on one more with a Chisholm Jr. sac fly to make it 6-4. Um, we go to the 6th, and Fernando Cruz comes on, and Fernando Cruz was actually, he pitched in 3 of the 4 games and pitched pretty well. And I think he's a key in this bullpen, right? Like, I think, you know, in my mind, it should be right. You have Bednar and Weaver, but like Devin Williams, who did, struggle in game 3. Like, look, I think Fernando Cruz, as far as that sort of righty lane, like I think there's competition there. And for me, like, I think Fernando Cruz deserves a look in that 7th inning role, if you will. Now, I know it's not that cut and dry, but I think that Cruz, who's not without its risk, right? Cruz sometimes loses the zone, but when he's on, he is really tough to hit. So Cruz with the 1, 2, 3, 6th inning. The 7th would go to Luke Weaver. He would provide a 1, 2, 3 inning as well. And then the 8th, the Yanks break it open. You would get an Anthony Volpe sac fly to make it 7-4. And then Trent Grisham, lefty as well. Trent Grisham, 2-run homer. And the home runs continue for him. His 27th homer of the year makes it 9-4 Yanks. Devin Williams with a 1, 2, 3, 8th inning. Then at the top of the ninth, the Yankees would tack on one more and a Paul Goldschmidt sac fly. And then Mark Leonard Jr. with a 1, 2, 3, 9. So the Yankee bullpen went perfect between the 6th and 9th inning. 1, 2, 3 innings for Cruz, Weaver, Williams, and Leiter Jr. to give the Yankees a 10-4 win. Game 2. Game 2 was another lopsided Yankee win, and Carlos Rodon making his first start back in Chicago, which is pretty interesting because Carlos Rodon last pitched for the White Sox in 2021. So this is now his 4th season not having been a White Sox, and it took until now for him to be back in Chicago. Just a weird, and Carlos Rodon has not really sustained. And now Rodon in the first year with the Yankees was injured for a bit, and maybe that coincided with it. I can't remember. But just maybe a weird scheduling quirk. The fact that he had not pitched back in Chicago, but here he does, and wins to go to 15-7. So I believe Carlos Rodon has the most wins in the American League, with 15, 6 innings, 7 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. A good outing for Rodon. And then for the White Sox, it was former Yankee Yoendris Gomez, who definitely struggled. Um, Loses to go to 3-2, 4 innings, only 2 hits, 5 runs, 4 of those earned, but 6 walks for Gomez. So obviously a lot, 6 strikeouts as well. But he was out of the game pretty early. As far as the lineup here, Goldschmidt on the bench, Dominguez again on the bench. Um, but the Yankees would take the early lead again. First inning, and it was room for a lot more, actually. It was basically sort of no out, but Ben Rice with a double play that scores the run to make it 1-0. And then in the fourth inning, the Yankees were able to break it open via a Trent Grisham grand slam. 28th homer of the year. It's just been a magical year for Trent Grisham, who is going to be paid as a free agent at the end of the season. Um, and yeah, so the Yankee home run bats are at it again, 5-0. And then the White Sox would score a run in the bottom of the fifth on a Chase Mydroth RBI single to make it 5-1. Then in the top of the sixth, against the White Sox bullpen, you would get an Anthony Volpe RBI single to make it 6-1. And Austin Wells RBI single to make it 7-1. And then an RBI single by Ben Rice to make it 8-1. And then in the top of the seventh, it was Anthony Volpe with a 2-run homer to make it 10-1. 19th homer of the year. So Volpe, a pretty good series for him. Granted, it's against the White Sox, but still, like, you can't, I can't go there fully, but I still want to see what he does in this 2-week stretch against real good competition. But Volpe, he was solid, which I don't, I don't know how to word this, but it's tough because the better he does, the less of a chance that Caballero gets a chance to start it short. And I still am of the belief that Volpe, should not be the guy that starts every single game. And with him doing this, any little bit of success, more of a chance that that's going to happen. So 10-1 Yanks after the Volpe homer. Fernando Cruz on back-to-back days comes in, pitches a scoreless seventh. In the bottom of the eighth, Tim Hill would allow a run on an Andrew Benintendi RBI single to make it 10-2. And that would be your final score. Camilo Duvall would finish out the game in the ninth, gives the Yankees a 10-2 win. Let's go to game three. Game 3 and 4 are the close games. Game 3 would actually be a very rare road extra inning win for the Yankees. And now that's 2 road extra inning wins in a row for the Yankees. And Cam Schlittler, his success continues. Unfortunately, ends up with a no decision after Devin Williams couldn't keep the lead, but 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, and 8 strikeouts. Just getting better and better. I know it's against a White Sox lineup that is not overly, dangerous, but still, like Schlittler, who is, young to Major League Baseball, um, is certainly making an impact. For the White Sox, it was another really good rookie, Shane Smith, who pitched pretty well. 6 and a third innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, and 7 strikeouts for him in the no decision. This was the one game that Jason Dominguez would start. Interestingly, batted ninth, which different look. Usually you'd see Dominguez more in that 6 range, but they go with him batting ninth. And this would be another one where Austin Wells would go. He went back to back. Wells was in games 2 and 3. Goldschmidt was in starting games 1 and 4. So Yankees take the lead, and Aaron Judge seems to be breaking out of it a bit. Definitely does. It seems like it's getting there. Now, again, he's had his struggles against the Astros, so I'm curious to see how that goes. But Judge hits his 42nd home run of the year to give the Yankees 1-0 lead. The White Sox would, in the bottom of the fifth, tie it up on an RBI single with 2 out by Mike Tauchman. This will not be the last that we talk about Tauchman in this series. Makes it 1-1. And this was after Cam Schlittler was hit by a line drive. Luckily, he was okay. It was a little bit of a scare. Brooks Baldwin hit one right on the right arm, but he was all right. 1-1 White Sox. Yankees retake the lead in the top of the seventh. Big home run Austin Wells, his 19th homer of the year to give the Yankees 2-1 lead. He was pretty fired up. And so Schlittler was in line for the win. However, in the bottom of the seventh. Um, and at this point, there had been Giancarlo Stanton had pinch hit for Dominguez. Want to make note of that in the seventh when they were up 2-1. But bottom of the seventh, and Caballero comes in for Stan at that point. Devin Williams, he is not able to keep the lead. Leadoff double Curtis Mead, and then Maedroff with the RBI single to tie it up at 2. Bottom of the eighth, Luke Weaver is able to give a scoreless eighth, keep it tied. Bottom of the ninth, Bednar, he's able to also keep it tied. So we go to extra innings. And in the 10th, Anthony Volpe bunts. And I never saw an answer on this, whether Volpe decided to do that on his own. I gotta think he did. It didn't make sense in the top half of an inning with the rules being what it is, but also with McMahon on deck. I mean, McMahon is not really the sac fly. I mean, he's not really the sac fly type as I see it. I know he did have, and thinking about that, I know he did have that walk off when he was first the Yankee. He had that walk off. I guess it was technically a hit because the outfielder just didn't go for it. But he grounds out, and they get Austin Wells at home. Wells probably should have tried to get in a rundown, but McMahon does not get the job done. Caballero walks, and then Grisham strikes out. So another, what we've seen a lot this year, an unsuccessful extra inning spot for the Yankees. But they're able to hang on to the bottom of the 10th. Kyle Teal grounds out to move the runner over to third. And then Bednar strikes out Sosa. And the thing here is that it came so close to them winning. Sosa hits a fly ball to right field where it just goes foul. If that drops in fair, it's obviously game over. If somehow it was a sac fly situation, the game's over because it was hit deep by inches. When it was first said, I'm thinking, all right, that's game over, but it just curved foul, and then he strikes him out. And then Wells, I think on the Montgomery at bat, made a really nice pick. Like this, that could have been a wild pitch. So a couple of game-saving situations there. And Montgomery lines out. So we go to the 11th, then the Yankees break through. Against the lefty Tyler Alexander, the Yankees pinch hit Goldschmidt for Ben Rice. Goldschmidt lines out to move Grisham over to third. Then they intentionally walk Judge, which on the one hand makes sense, but it's a risky thing to do when, as the road team, you want to get as many runs as possible. So I did not mind that. And plus, Cody Bellinger comes up clutch in these situations a lot, and he gets a little fortunate. He dunks it in left field, RBI single Bellinger to give the Yankees a 3-2 lead. What was really big, though, was Jazz with an RBI double to give the Yankees a 4-2 lead. Austin Wells was unsuccessful in getting the run, but then Anthony Volpe is able to dunk in an RBI double into the opposite field to make it 5-2. So the Yankees getting some insurance for Camilo Duvall. He was in on back-to-back nights, and he's able to get the job done. The ghost runner scores from second on an RBI ground up by Will Robertson, but he strikes out Edgar Quero to end the game, and the Yankees win 5-3. And at this point, they're on a 7-game winning streak. They win the series. Now they're going for the 4-game sweep, which unfortunately they are unable to do. Game 4 would be a matchup between Luis Gil and Martin Perez. A pretty good pitchers matchup as it turned out. Luis Gil goes 5 1/3 innings, 4 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, and 7 strikeouts. Martin Perez, 6 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, and 7 strikeouts. So pretty similar lines. Luis Gil, again, like the eye test hasn't been great, although I thought he got better as the game went on today, but the results have been pretty good. Like after that really bad first inning against the Marlins, since then, he's kept the Yankees in all the games he's pitched. So that speaks to something. This was more of a right-handed looking lineup with the lefty Perez on the mound. So Rosario was in for McMahon. Caballero was technically in for Grisham. And yeah, no Dominguez, of course. And they went with no Wells, probably because of day game after night game. So Rice was in against the lefty catching. And it's Aaron Judge yet again, starting the scoring. Home run, 43rd homer of the season. And he ties Yogi Berra, which is pretty crazy. So Aaron Judge is now 5th all-time in Yankee home runs, tying Yogi. So a milestone homer there for Judge. Makes it 1-0. Bottom of the second, White Sox tie it up. A 1-out double for Curtis Mead, and then an RBI double for Will Robertson makes it 1-1. Then at the top of the third, things get interesting. 2-out rally. Aaron Judge nearly homers again. He doubles off the top of the wall, but then Cody Bellinger with an RBI double to make it 2-1. And then, for me, maybe the biggest play of the game. Mike Tauchman, the former Yankee, who is so good at robbing home runs, well, he robs Giancarlo Stanton of a home run. Flat out. It was going out. Opposite field shot. and Tachman brings it back. It would have made it 4-1, and I think it would have changed everything. Instead, the score means 2-1, and the Yankees actually would not score again. So let's jump all the way. Well, top of the sixth, Anthony Volpe, first and second one out with a chance to extend the lead, double play. Not great there for Volpe. Bottom of the sixth, it would be Colson Montgomery homering off of Luis Heel, his 15th homer of the year to tie it up at 2. It just barely went out, unfortunately. And that would have been huge if it didn't, but it goes out and it ties it up at 2. Then Fernando Cruz comes in to finish up the sixth, and actually it's a double play. Really nice outing for Fernando Cruz, who pitches a 1-2-3 seventh as well with a couple of strikeouts. So he's really looking good, like I said, and I hope that they use him in mostly high leverage situations. Let's see here. Top of the eighth is a spot where the Yankees had a 2-out rally. Rosario single, Chisholm Jr. walk, Volpe walk, and in a lefty-lefty situation, and you didn't really have other viable options. Ben Rice grounds out. And Ben Rice, he's been better lately against lefties, but it's not his bread and butter. And it is still tied at 2. And now Tim Hill comes on in the eighth. And he is so good against lefties. And three of the first four batters were lefties. So I understand bringing him in. It was either going to be him or Luke Weaver. And I would have been fine either way. I don't mind the decision, but Tim Hill needs to be careful to Lenin Sosa, who hits his 18th homer of the year to give the White Sox a 3-2 lead. The problem with Tim Hill is against righties, he gives up a lot of home runs. It's a lot. I don't know what the number is, but it's a lot. And he got all the other lefties out. It was a 1-2 pitch. For me, it was too good a pitch. It wasn't down the middle, but it was a strike. And he needed to not do that there. If you walk him, so be it. So be it. So that was tough. We go to the top of the ninth. Trent Grisham, lefty with a leadoff walk. He had come in the game. He didn't start the game, but he pinch hit. And Trent had a couple of walks in this one. And then here's what I don't understand. Mike Vassell, the righty, comes in, and you had Jason Dominguez on the bench. Why would he not pinch hit for Paul Goldschmidt? And I understand that Dominguez was the last player on the bench, but still, you could have still made that work. You could have positionally still made that work. I don't get it. Paul Goldschmidt is not good against righties. Dominguez is good against righties. Why? And Goldschmidt flies out, Judge flies out, and then Trent Grisham actually steals second. But Cody Bellinger strikes out looking. Cody was upset, but it was a strike. It was the right call. Strike 3. And the Yankees lose 3-2. So a tough way to end it, where the Yankees really were so close to finishing off the sweep and really keeping the good momentum going. But again, overall, a successful road trip for sure. No way around it. Not road trip, I'm sorry. Successful week against the Nationals and White Sox. Poor competition. Excuse me, that they went 6-1 against. So let's now preview the Yankees-Astros series, which is a big one. And the Yankees lost 2 of 3 to Houston. Not too long ago, right? A few weeks ago. So the Yankees will hope to return the favor in Houston. Now, Houston has not listed their starters, but using logical reasoning, I'm going to try to give the Astro probables. But the fact they haven't listed them tells you they could go in a different direction. What I do know is the Yankees will avoid Hunter Brown, which is good, because obviously Hunter Brown's been one of the best starters in the league. It'll be Max Fried in game 1, likely versus Framber Valdez. So this is really pretty damn good matchup. A couple of really good lefties. The Yankees did well against Framber Valdez last outing. At the same time, the Astros did well against Max Fried. So both teams have had success against these starters recently. And I think overall, too. I think the Yankees have actually done well against Framber in different spots. So that's game 1. Game 2 will be Will Warren for the Yanks, who did not face the Astros in that series at Yankee Stadium. And he'll go up against Jason Alexander, not Seinfeld Jason Alexander, who pitched great against the Yankees, which was a real disappointment. That was the Alexander-Fried matchup in that last game of that series. So that's game 2. And then game 3 will be between Carlos Rodon and Christian Javier. Now, Christian Javier in his career has had big-time success against the Yankees, including he started that combined no-hitter against the Yankees a few years ago at Yankee Stadium. So there's that. And Christian Javier is coming back from injury. So that's another games 1 and 3 got some pretty marquee pitchers involved. I'd say more so game 1 a little bit, but game 3 is nothing bad either between Rodon and Javier. So some real interesting matchups. Really hoping the Yankees can come through. My confidence isn't super high. Um, the Yankees have had some regular season success against the Astros. It's not as if that has not happened before. But we'll see. Yordan Alvarez is back in the Astro lineup, so they're definitely looking more whole, right? When you see Altuve, Alvarez, Correa, Jeremy Pena, like it's looking a little bit more like it has in the past. So, that's definitely something to look for. And I'm just hoping the Yankees can find a way to win 2 out of 3. That's what it is. So again, Yankees 7-game win streak ends, 9-game road win streak ends, but they're playing some good ball. They win another series. They win 3 of 4 at the White Sox. And now the real big 2-week stretch begins in Houston.